Hi guys, quick update here for Bitcoin and the S&P. Hope everyone's doing great. It's 15th of May 2025. So if you want to join the group, everything's here. It's on this tab here. It's cheaper over 3 months and you can pay via crypto if you wanted to. We've got both the full and the mini version of the masterclass. If you buy the full version, you get 1 month's free access to the group. And the second part of this course here, we're hoping to get released before the end of the year. It's been delayed now by nearly 3 years, so we've been meaning to get a part 2 to that, but such is the volatility and the opportunity in the markets, these obviously have to come first. So Bitcoin, whilst we're here on it, like I said, for all intents and purposes, it should have gone lower, right? So we know that. However, we were buying on a breakdown of here, and then just before the Fed, this was really at the limit where it could have been wrong in terms of the ABC bearish count. We got out of the market here and we jumped back in full position here. So we are effectively been long since here. Now, to me, this Bitcoin move is not over. The Bitcoin story is not over. Short term, we're obviously going into a bit of a short-term correction. I don't think there's anything you can really play into this in terms of a major, catastrophic move down from here. It's forming some kind of ABC, so a back test of this little cheeky little 3-hour block here. So that could be another time just to reload orders here. I don't see this falling from here. We are going much higher than this current price, and if you want to know more, just come and join the group. We've got the exact wave count here. We made the right call to exit the market here, fearing a large correction, which is what we got. Even here, should have gone low. That's not really how a market should bottom. Very surprised at the time. Didn't take out the election lows, but hey, it is what it is. We were buying on the confirmed bullish breakout of this move here. And like I said, we are fully positioned long. We have our eyes on a few altcoins, which are going to move multiple X's relative to Bitcoin. So if you want to know more, come and join the group. Now, on the SPX, there was no doubt, there was no hesitation at all. We were buying right here. Absolutely unbelievable discount. We took part in one of the biggest moves in the history of the ES here. That is a that is maybe 3 times I've seen that since '08. That much of a move. Such was the short squeeze. That move is entirely forecastable if you have knowledge that we discuss on the masterclass of auction market. So effectively, we've been long since here. Now, you can play leaps, you can play SPXL. We're effectively looking for a run off the move up here. Now, technically, the target is between 200 and 210. However, we don't care. We never sell the top. We sell at a point where the asset is going to waste your life away, right? So it's impossible for the S&P to continually do back-to-back 1.5% days, right? Obviously, if the S&P moves up 1%, in theory, this moves up 3%. But eventually, the S&P's gains and the volatility is going to subside, and we're going to go from 1, 2, and 3% gains every day back-to-back to more like 0.5%, 0.75%. So eventually, this is going to subdue. So whilst the target is 210, you never sell the top. You sell at a point where it's an obviously technically, very poorish kind of highs up here that needs to be cleared. So we're going to get out of this 180, 190. The bulk of the move has been done, and that's all we're looking for in the stock market is a double over the space of a year, as in this case, way shorter than that. So absolutely perfect call here. That is a multi-million-dollar call. However way you look at it, right? You buy everyone else's panic. Now, who's going to go broke here? Always have to ask yourself that. Who's going to go broke? Well, obviously, anyone who's been short watching too many Harry Dent videos, they're obviously going to go broke and bankrupt, but we're still going to go higher. We've maintained, frankly, since the first YouTube video, right? We basically forecast this entire move since here, before any of this even occurred, right? So none of this had occurred. None of this had occurred, and we basically drew out the entire move via hand, as you can see here, muscle memory, from the first YouTube video. This S&P has got a mission, and the mission is to get as many people broke as possible. The only way that can happen mathematically now and psychologically is by pushing it way higher than most people think. And it's quite funny. Why do people buy any asset once it's already pumped? But such is the psychology. Always have to ask yourself, who's going bankrupt here? There's always someone going bankrupt. Right now, it's the hedge funds. Because we have data which we analyze in the group twice a week. Hedge funds are very much short. They've missed this entire move. Many of the algorithmic hedge funds getting too excited to the bearish side with all this tariff nonsense talk. As usual, the news is the effect, never the cause. So that the kindling for the market to move higher is the fact that hedge funds are very much short. And they're still short. Even though the data might be delayed for up to a week, doesn't matter. They are still too short for their own good. They're not going to cover till this makes a new high. Which means just breaking 6,200, whatever this high was, that's not the top. We have to go higher. Now, we have done extension targets on this as well. That's the thing. You've got to have targets here. You've got to have targets, high confidence targets, where these markets are going to go, and then you need to offload before the euphoria gets too high. To me, I can see a situation where the entire world's population are going to FOMO in here. We are completing a grand super cycle here, make no mistake, which as an absolute minimum completes the cycle from '08, but in my opinion, completes the cycle from 1970. And to further elaborate on that, we are completing the cycle from off here. And I don't think there's any doubt. I don't think you can doubt that whatsoever. We are completing a damn near 100-year cycle here. Which obviously means we're going to undergo a catastrophic collapse. Never has a collapse occurred before everyone FOMOing in, just like they did in 1929, getting all excited about the FDR, about the new highway, getting all excited about FDR's new highway, right? Spoken about in Die Hard with a Vengeance, great movie, just like here, getting all excited about AOL, right? Getting all excited about property prices going through the roof, right? So have we reached 1928 FDR, tech boom, property bubble, tops? Obviously not. Are we getting close to that? Yes. So, unfortunately, these kind of individuals who buy at these tops, who come around once every 20 years, they don't know it yet. They don't know it yet. But likely they'll be FOMOing in, I would say, within the next 3 months. I would say between here and Labor Day. And once they start following in, you know you have a huge problem. Because to me, this is the last wave for the S&P. Anyway, fascinating things. I think anyone listening to this, you are literally about to witness history here over the next year. Frankly, over the next 6 months. Great time to be joining the group because you want to know how to make money out of that move, either up or down. Anyway, going back to Bitcoin then. So we've nailed the move on the S&P. We're long Bitcoin. So, some of the best trades that we've had here in the group over the last 6 weeks. Such was the opportunity on the S&P. That was the bigger trade. The bigger trade wasn't Bitcoin here. The bigger trade X-wise was always the move on Bitcoin. But Bitcoin itself, I don't think you can call this bullish. Sorry, I don't think you can call this bearish. A lot of people are saying this, this is going to peter out soon at 115, 120. To me, it's going to go much, much higher than that. We have an interim target here of, I don't want to give too much away, but we have an interim target here for around 140,000. I know a lot of people are targeting 125, 150, but to me, we're going to run into a lot of problems there at 140,000. I know a lot of people are buying Ethereum here, looking for a new high. Personally, I would doubt that particular narrative. I think you're going to be struggling here. We've offloaded this 2.5 years ago. So Ethereum's been dead to us for a very long time. Once again, it's the deception of the log chart. On this log chart, you think, do you know what? Bitcoin's going to go to 140, another 40%. This could easily go to $5,000. And that's the thing, and that's fine. The log chart will distort everything because we're dealing with percentages here. It's an exponentially, 100% realized volatility market. On the log chart, you would think, yeah, that's easy, right? Visually, it doesn't look like a lot. Convert it to a line graph, and as in to a linear chart, suddenly you've got the whole story. This was the move. This was the euphoric move, which means all of this was just an X wave, a B wave, Doesn't really matter. Call it a crap wave if you want. No one cares, right? We have to be very careful dealing with corrections. And now look at this. So this is some kind of, once again, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If something's not making a new high, we can't buy it, right? Look at Apple. And by the way, this is the biggest tell. This is the biggest tell. To me, that has topped for most people's lives. I don't think anyone listening to this will now live long enough to see Apple make a new high. Now, this is the biggest tell. To me, Apple is the greatest stock in the history of mankind. Made everyone a lot of money since '08. Myself included. Having offloaded this about 2 years ago, knowing, actually, I'd rather buy Nvidia. Now, this is the biggest tell. Make no mistake. Many people are going to be buying the wrong stuff here. And we've mentioned this once again right at the lows. If you were in the group, you would be buying the S&P 4800. Unfortunately, I don't get to do a YouTube video every day because my focus is the group, obviously. And so we have to manage the groups, first. So the calls, the videos here are always delayed. Make no mistake, it would be drastically abnormal if Apple made a new high. S&P will make a new high, as we have established from the lows, up massively, right? Just leap options are up, 10x. SPXL's up a double. SPY's up 40%. Then, depending on how much capital you're moving, you want to take high confidence positions here. And then you can move a lot more size if you have more confidence in the position. It would be drastically abnormal if Apple now made a new high. If Apple does make a new high, which I don't think it will, then the S&P is going to go to 10, 15,000 easily. If Apple doesn't make a new high here, which obviously it won't, because by the sounds of it, by the looks of it, S&P is going to make a new high before the end of the quarter. That is the problem. When the greatest stock in the history of mankind, which has always made a new high with the S&P for the last 17 years, doesn't make a new high, you know you have a problem, okay? You know you have a problem. Fine, Nvidia possibly make a new high. Once again, we've made all the money we were ever going to make on Nvidia last year, right? We offloaded it prior to a 9-month sideways correction. You never sell the top. You sell before it's going to waste your life away. It would be drastically abnormal if Apple now made a new high. It doesn't validate my count at all. If Apple doesn't make a new high, which it won't do, let's be honest, that then validates this is the last move on the S&P. Obviously, we're nowhere near topping. We've got an interim target of 460s and higher than that, and we've got extension targets because the S&P can extend. It's not beyond the realms of possibility for that wave to extend. That's fine, right? We're happy with that. Same on Bitcoin. The move could extend. But this is the biggest tell. This is where we're going to know for sure. We're going to know for sure. It's all about Apple. Everything is about Apple. And what they've done here, they've used the tariff headlines to basically offload Apple and panic sell people out of their SPX positioning. That's the great thing about buying the index. And we've always said on the group, in the last wave, which we are now currently in, the last wave of mankind, if you will, prior to the biggest short in the history of mankind. I mean, that is a $10 billion short easily. Easily. That will be a vertical move there from the top on the S&P. I've got no idea who's buying the S&P at 4.6s. But anyway, that's another story in itself. Maybe they should take the masterclass. But anyway, what was my train of thought there? What was I saying? Yeah, we've always said the last move, we were always going to participate more on the index level because that's the safest thing to do. You buy stocks towards the bottom of the move, towards the top of the move, when the move is failing, showing great momentum decline, you always buy the index. How could I show you momentum decline? Well, I'll show you right now. Now, we are dealing with the monthly chart here, clearly, and you can see that. I mean, we've technically been diverging since the first YouTube video. That's a very clear line. Now, Carl the Moon has taught us very well with his videos from a Bugatti from Dubai that he's taught us about the divergence, right? I remember learning this of him about 7 years ago. Obviously joking. Real divergence isn't here. Real divergence would be within the shaded zone. So this, S&P's obviously done this throughout the last 7 years, made a new high. If this tops out before 70, that is real divergence. And it looks as though it will do. If this breaks above 70 and we clear this high, obviously the S&P is going to extrapolate towards 10, 15,000. So the biggest tells, and obviously I'm going to be right, let's be honest, it is the last wave of mankind. Apple's not going to make a new high here, and this RSI on the monthly isn't going to get above 70. Could it get close? Yes, I would guess about 69. It would get close, but if it stays here, then you know you have a huge problem. Make no mistake, the S&P is dying here, right? But in its last leg before its eventual death and big crash, it has to make a new high, and that's what's going to trap everyone. So anyway, let's get on to the Bitcoin here. Yeah, so Bitcoin's going to go higher. We are long Bitcoin. We are long the S&P. And if you want to know more, come on, join the group. I think here there's a short-term pullback. I'm not expecting anything major. A lot of people are running all of that as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's fine. Good luck to you. And they're looking for a move back into 91. I'll be surprised if it goes down that low, to be honest. I think this is just a short-term pullback. Is there anything here on the futures? It's 10 minutes delayed here. Let's just open up the futures. Yeah, I mean, all that just looks like a bit of a correction, doesn't it, right? So, you know, it doesn't really look like an impulsive move down, does it? So some kind of ABC. I mean, it is often the case that we just truncate and we end up forming a bit of a triangular thing. So we get an ABC correction from Bitcoin followed by a 1-2. So it almost looks like an ABC to ABCDE triangle, but really this move is the impulsive one. Clearly, because that's an ABC truncation. If it was a proper triangle, all of these waves would be corrective. So I don't see it taken out this low here. If it is this pattern, that is, it's going to peter out here and then form an impulse and then followed by a wave 2 correction. So I'll be surprised if this current move down, and we're talking here on the 1 hourly chart, I'll be surprised if it goes much below 100,000. I mean, a good time to re-add to the position. That would be a good little pivot point to add limit orders into. You got limit orders there as well as limit orders here. You know, makes a good psychological target, doesn't it? So maybe a run of this low, form a bit of a swing failure, shakeout pattern. But the Bitcoin story is not over. Unbelievable times that we're living in here. Anyway, if you want to know more, come and join the group. We have our eyes on many stocks, many coins. We're looking at the yield situation, the dollar situation, the pound situation. We nailed the move in the pound 2.5 years ago, converted all US dollars into pounds at that very favorable exchange rate. Euro, all of these markets are affecting where Bitcoin's going to go. So to me, Bitcoin overall is bullish, and interim target of 140,000, and if you want to know more, come and join the group.